You know, it's a funny thing. When you're building a life with someone, you don't ever stop to think it could all fall apart. You just keep laying down bricks, one by one, a mortgage here, a couple of kids there, a steady job, a Saturday night ritual. You believe, maybe foolishly, that love is the mortar that'll keep it all together. For 8 years, Maya and I were the picture people like to point to. Solid, comfortable, safe. We had a small house on the edge of town, nothing fancy, but it was ours. 2 kids who lit up every room they entered. A dog that barked at the mailman like clockwork. It wasn't the kind of life you'd see in a movie, but it was real. And it was enough. I ran a modest construction business. Nothing corporate or shiny. Just good, honest work. Early mornings, late evenings, calloused hands, and a back that ached more each year. But every time I saw Maya standing on the porch waving as I pulled into the driveway, it felt worth it. She stayed home with the kids. Took care of everything that made a house a home. Grocery lists pinned to the fridge. Birthday parties thrown together with dollar store decorations and her laugh filling the kitchen. She was the sun around which our little world spun. At least, that's what I believed. Looking back, the cracks were there. They just hadn't spread wide enough yet for me to notice. Little things. Moments when she'd be on her phone a little longer than usual. Times she'd pick fights over nothing. Nights she'd roll over in bed without saying goodnight. I chalked it up to stress. Kids, bills, life? We were tired. Who wasn't? Then came Logan. Logan was one of my newer hires. Fresh out of trade school. Young, cocky, the kind of kid who still thought he was invincible. But he worked hard when he wanted to, and he had a way with clients that smoothed over the rougher edges of the business. I figured he'd grow out of the attitude. Maya thought he was funny. Said he reminded her of me when I was young. I laughed it off at first. It felt good, honestly, seeing her smile like that again. Even if it wasn't for me. I didn't know, couldn't have known, that while I was out sweating under the sun, trying to build something for our family, Maya and Logan were busy tearing it apart. It started small, the way these things always do. Innocent glances. Inside jokes. A hand brushing a little too long against another. A comment here, a compliment there. Maybe Maya missed feeling seen. Maybe Logan just liked the thrill. Maybe it doesn't matter. The first time they crossed that line, I'm sure they told themselves it was a mistake. Just once. Just to feel alive. Just because life had gotten so ordinary. But once you open that door, it doesn't swing shut so easily. They started sneaking around. Texts deleted. Excuses made. Lies told with the same mouth that used to kiss my forehead when I came home late. I didn't see it. I didn't want to see it. Love makes you blind. Trust makes you foolish. For a while, life went on. I kept working. Maya kept smiling. The kids kept laughing. Everything on the surface looked the same, like a painting hung just right to cover a hole in the wall. But the truth has a way of leaking out. Always. It came to me in pieces. Overheard words that didn't add up. A photo message sent from a blocked number, a blurry snapshot of Maya too close to Logan to explain away. I felt the ground shift under me. A slow-motion earthquake. Still, I didn't react. Didn't rage. Didn't accuse. I planned. I gathered evidence quietly. Screenshots. Witnesses. Every thread I could pull, I pulled until I had a tapestry of betrayal I couldn't ignore. Then I made my move. First, Logan. Fired on the spot for gross misconduct. Word traveled fast in our small town. No one wanted to touch a guy who had disrespected his boss like that. Last I heard, he was crashing on someone's couch, out of money, out of luck. Next, the kids. I packed up their favorite toys, their clothes, every piece of their world that mattered. I filed for emergency custody with the evidence I had. The judge didn't need much convincing. Finally, I packed up my own heart, what little was left of it, and I left. 2 states away. New job. New house. New start. Maya came home one night to an empty house. A quiet too loud to bear. A note on the counter written in the same hand that once wrote her love letters. Enjoy the life you chose. I don't know what she did after that. I don't care. Me? I rebuilt. Like I always do. Some nights, when the kids are asleep and the world feels a little too quiet, the memories creep back. The laughter that wasn't real. The promises that were broken. But I just smile. A little sad. A little wiser. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't shouting, or fighting, or even forgiving. Sometimes the best revenge is living a life they can't be part of anymore. And brother, I'm just getting started. When we first settled into our new town, everything felt surreal. Like I was walking through someone else's life, trying to pretend it fit me. The kids were young enough to adapt quickly, bless them, but every night after they went to sleep, I sat alone with the weight of what had happened pressing down on my chest. I wasn't angry anymore, not exactly. It was something colder, something heavier. A kind of grief for the life I thought we had. I found a job at a local construction firm within a week, no fanfare, no title on the door, just a hard hat and a steady paycheck. It felt good to work with my hands again, to sweat the betrayal out of my bones, one nail, one beam, one wall at a time. I didn't tell anyone about Maya. No one knew my story here. No one pitied me. I liked it that way. There was a freedom in anonymity, in being just another face in the crowd. At night, I'd sit on the porch watching the stars blink awake and wonder if she ever realized what she had thrown away. Wondered if Logan, wherever he was, thought about the cost of his harmless fun. Probably not. People like that rarely do. Some nights I missed her so badly it hurt. Not the woman she became, but the woman I thought she was. The girl who laughed with her whole body, who danced barefoot in our kitchen, who once made a home out of nothing but love and second-hand furniture. That girl was gone. Maybe she had been gone longer than I realized. One evening, a neighbor, Mrs. Patterson, invited us over for dinner. She was a widow, kind as the day was long, and she had a way of making anyone feel at home. The kids loved her instantly. We sat around her worn oak table eating casserole and swapping stories, and for the first time in what felt like forever, I laughed. Not the hollow laugh I had mastered over the last few months, but a real one. After dinner, she pulled me aside, handed me a pie for later, and said, "You're doing good, Ben. Your kids are happy. You're strong." I didn't know how to respond. So I just nodded and swallowed the lump in my throat. Maybe she saw the pain behind my eyes, or maybe she just knew what it was like to lose someone without a funeral. Either way, her kindness cracked something open in me. It was time to stop surviving. Time to start living again. Not for revenge. Not for pride. But for me. For the kids. For the future that was still waiting, battered but not broken. So I built a new routine. Mornings were for work. Evenings were for homework, bedtime stories, and quiet talks on the porch. Weekends were for exploring the town, finding new parks, making new memories. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, the weight began to lift. I still carried the scars, sure. They were part of me now. But they didn't define me. They reminded me that I had survived the storm. And now, standing in the quiet aftermath, it was up to me to decide what came next. I didn't know it yet, but the past wasn't quite done with me. Not by a long shot. But when it came knocking again, I'd be ready. Stronger. Smarter. And absolutely unwilling to ever be blindsided again. It happened on a Tuesday, just like any other. I had just finished helping the kids with their homework, and we were settling down to watch a movie when my phone buzzed on the coffee table. It was a number I didn't recognize, and my first instinct was to ignore it. But something made me pick it up. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was fate. I stepped out onto the porch, answered the call, and heard a voice I hadn't expected to ever hear again. It was Logan. His voice was shaky, almost desperate. He begged me to listen, said he had made a terrible mistake, that he needed to make things right. I leaned against the porch railing, looking out into the night, feeling a storm begin to brew in my chest. I didn't say much. Just listened. He confessed to everything. Not just the affair, but the manipulation. How Maya had started it. How she had played both of us. How after I left, she had turned on him too. Used him. Left him. He said he was sorry. Said he had nowhere else to turn. He asked for forgiveness. Asked for help. I let the silence stretch between us like a noose. Then, very calmly, I told him the truth. That forgiveness was not mine to give. That I didn't hate him. I didn't feel anything for him at all. He was a chapter one had closed. A bridge I had burned. And I wasn't about to rebuild it. I ended the call without another word. Stood there on the porch, feeling the cool night air wash over me. I felt lighter. Stronger. Logan's call wasn't a lifeline. It was an anchor I had finally let go of. That night, after the kids were in bed, I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the old family photo I still kept tucked away. The four of us smiling under the summer sun. I realized something important. I wasn't healing because time had passed. I was healing because I chose to. Because I faced the pain instead of running from it. Because I built something new from the ruins. I put the photo away, not out of anger, but out of peace. It was a memory of a life that had ended. A life that had made me who I was, but no longer defined me. Tomorrow would come and I would meet it head-on. Not as the man who was betrayed, but as the man who refused to be broken. And somewhere out there, Maya and Logan would have to live with the choices they made, while I lived with the man I had become. The days after that phone call stretched out in front of me like an open road I'd never dared to travel before. It was strange, almost unsettling, to realize that I no longer carried their betrayal like a rock in my chest. It wasn't that it didn't hurt anymore. It was that the hurt had finally been drained of its power. I was free in a way I'd never been before. Free from the lies, the pretending, the tightrope walk between anger and sadness. I threw myself deeper into my new life. At work, I earned the respect of the crew without saying much, just by showing up, working hard, doing what needed to be done. The kids were thriving too. My daughter started taking piano lessons with a local teacher. My son joined the soccer team. Little milestones that stitched together a life worth living. One Friday night, after a long day on the job site, I sat on the back porch with a cold soda in my hand, watching the kids chase fireflies. I realized that somewhere along the way I had stopped counting the days since I left Maya. Stopped wondering if she thought about me. Stopped caring about the what-ifs. I'd learned something the hard way. Closure isn't something you get from the people who hurt you. It's something you give yourself. One evening, Mrs. Patterson dropped by again, this time with a stack of hand-me-down books for the kids. As we sat chatting on the porch, she said something that stuck with me. Some people, she said, will spend the rest of their lives drowning in regret and pride. Don't let them pull you under too. I promised myself right then that I wouldn't. Not for Maya. Not for Logan. Not for anyone. I would live, really live, because I deserved that much. And so did my kids. About 2 weeks after Logan's call, another unexpected message found its way to me. This time it was an email. The subject line read simply, "I'm sorry." It was from Maya. I stared at the screen for a long time, feeling nothing. Finally, I opened it. Her message was long, winding, full of apologies and excuses, sadness and self-pity. She said she had lost everything. She missed the kids. She missed me. She missed the life we had. She said she didn't know why she did what she did, only that she realized too late what it had cost her. She asked if we could talk. If there was any way to fix it. If she could at least see the kids. I closed the laptop without replying. It wasn't cruelty. It was acceptance. Some things break so thoroughly they can't be put back together. She had made her choices. And so had I. That night, I sat down with the kids and told them as gently as I could that sometimes people make mistakes they can't undo. That loving someone doesn't always mean letting them back into your life. They were too young to understand all the details. But they understood enough. We hugged a little tighter that night. Laughed a little louder. And when I finally drifted off to sleep, it was with a heart lighter than it had been in years. Freedom, I realized, isn't the absence of pain. It's the presence of peace. And brother, I'd fought like hell to find it. And I wasn't about to give it up now. As the weeks slipped into months, something incredible happened. Life started to feel good again. Not pretend good, like I had forced it to be back when I was trying to hold onto a marriage already slipping through my fingers. No, this was the kind of good that comes from something real. Something earned. Every morning, the kids and I had our little routines. I'd pack their lunches with silly notes tucked inside. My daughter, ever the artist, would draw doodles on the napkins and laugh when her brother made faces at them. Every evening, we'd sit down together for dinner, no phones, no distractions, just real conversation about real days. I had never realized how much Maya had slowly let those things slip away. Back then, it had been, "I'm too tired," or "let's just eat in front of the TV tonight." Small concessions that slowly chipped away at the life we were supposed to be building. Now, every laugh from my kids felt like mortar sealing new bricks into a new foundation. Work was steady. I even got offered a foreman position, but I turned it down. Not because I wasn't grateful, but because I wanted to be home when the kids got off the bus. I wanted to be there for the piano recitals, the soccer games, the scraped knees, and the bedtime stories. I wasn't about to miss another minute. Mrs. Patterson, bless her, kept an eye on us like a guardian angel. She'd bring over pies just because, and she made sure the kids never felt like anything was missing. One afternoon, after she dropped off some homemade cookies, she asked if I had considered dating again. I laughed, really laughed, for the first time in a long while. Dating? After everything? Trusting someone new felt about as easy as climbing a greased flagpole. But her question planted a seed. I didn't need someone to fix me. I had already done the hard work myself. But maybe, just maybe, somewhere down the road, I could let someone share the life I was building. Not fill a void, there wasn't one anymore, but add to something already whole. One Saturday, the kids and I went to the town's fall festival. Corn mazes, pumpkin patches, apple cider that burned a little going down. I watched them run from booth to booth, faces painted, laughter ringing through the crisp air, and I felt it. Pure, undiluted joy. Not haunted by the past. Not measured against what could have been. Just joy. As the sun set and the sky turned that deep orange that makes you believe in second chances, I realized something. This messy, imperfect, beautiful life was mine. And no betrayal, no heartbreak, no "I'm sorry" email could ever take it away. Maya might still be trapped in the ruins she created. Logan might still be chasing shadows of what he thought he wanted. But me? I was here. Alive. Whole. Happy. And brother, let me tell you, for the first time in a long time, I wasn't just surviving. I was living. It was a Sunday morning when the past came knocking again. I was out front mowing the lawn, the kids playing in the driveway with sidewalk chalk when a car I didn't recognize pulled up at the curb. I cut the engine on the mower and watched as the door swung open. For a second, my stomach twisted in a way I hadn't felt in months. Standing there, looking painfully out of place against the bright, ordinary backdrop of my new life, was Maya. She looked different. Not the woman I had married, not even the woman who had betrayed me. She looked hollow, like someone who had been carrying too much regret for too long. I wiped the sweat from my forehead with the back of my hand and walked to the end of the driveway. The kids noticed her too, pausing in their drawings, confused. I crouched down, smiled at them, and said, "Why don't you two go inside and grab some lemonade?" They obeyed without a word, glancing back once before the screen door slammed shut behind them. Maya took a few hesitant steps forward, but I held up a hand. "This far is far enough," I said, my voice steady. She nodded, tears already pooling in her eyes. I had to see you." "Had to see them," she whispered. I looked at her for a long moment. This was the woman who had promised forever. The woman who had broken it like it meant nothing. And now she stood there, empty-handed, full of sorrow, but it wasn't my job to carry it for her. "You saw us." "We're fine," I said simply. She wiped at her face. "Ben, I made the worst mistake of my life. I lost everything. I don't expect you to forgive me, but could you let me see them? Talk to them? Just once." The ache in her voice was real, and for a second, a younger version of myself, the man who still believed in second chances, stirred. But then I remembered every sleepless night, every tear my daughter had shed when she asked why Mommy wasn't coming with us. I remembered how hard I had fought to build something new from the ashes she had left behind. "No," I said quietly. "Not today. Maybe not ever. They deserve peace. They deserve stability. You gave that up?" She cried then, real, wrenching sobs that shook her small frame. I didn't move. I didn't reach out. Some lessons, brother, have to be learned the hard way. After a while, she gathered herself, nodded, and got back into her car. As she pulled away, I felt no satisfaction. No triumph. Only a quiet, solemn acceptance. The past had tried to creep back into my life, but it didn't fit here anymore. That evening, as I tucked the kids into bed and listened to their laughter echo through the house, I knew I had made the right decision. The life we had now wasn't perfect, but it was ours. Untouched by betrayal. Unburdened by ghosts. And if Maya ever showed up again, I'd be ready. Because you can forgive the past without inviting it back in. You can wish someone healing without reopening your own wounds. I had built a new life on a foundation stronger than any I had ever known, one brick, one laugh, one ordinary miracle at a time. And brother, I wasn't about to let anyone tear it down again. Fall melted into winter, and with it came a peace I'd almost been afraid to hope for. The holidays were different this year, quieter, smaller, but full of a kind of warmth money can't buy. The kids and I decorated our little house with string lights that blinked like stars and a tree that leaned slightly to the left no matter how many times we adjusted it. We baked cookies, burnt a few, laughed harder at the mess than we ever did at the perfection. On Christmas morning, they woke me up at dawn, tumbling into my room with shrieks of excitement, and for a moment, I just lay there, soaking it all in. This was the reward for holding the line, for protecting our home, for refusing to let the past steal one more thing from us. Later that day, after the wrapping paper tornado had settled and the kids were busy with their new toys, I sat by the window and thought about how far we had come. A year ago, I had been a different man, broken, confused, weighed down by betrayal. Now I was something else entirely. I wasn't just surviving. I was thriving. I hadn't just rebuilt my life. I had built it stronger, better, brick by stubborn brick. Occasionally, the old ghost still whispered. Late at night, when the house was still and the only sound was the wind against the windows, I would remember Maya's face that day at the curb, the way regret had hollowed her out. But those memories had no claws anymore. They passed over me like a breeze, noticed but powerless. I hadn't just closed the door on that chapter. I'd locked it, thrown away the key, and built a new door on a house she didn't even know the address to. One snowy afternoon in January, Mrs. Patterson invited us over for hot cocoa. As we sat at her kitchen table, the kids telling her all about their holiday adventures. She leaned over and whispered, "You've built something beautiful here, Ben. Don't ever forget that." I squeezed her hand and smiled. I wouldn't. I'd earned every smile, every ordinary moment of peace, and I'd guard it with everything I had. Some people spend their whole lives waiting for happiness to find them. I had learned the truth. You have to build it yourself, one hard, hopeful day at a time. And once you build it, you protect it. Because, brother, once you've stared down the wreckage of the life you thought you had and come out standing, there's no going back. Only forward. Always forward. Spring came slowly, like a cautious guest unsure if it was welcome. I spent my mornings fixing up the backyard, turning a patchy, forgotten space into something that looked almost like a garden. The kids helped where they could, or more often, they made mud pies and built forts out of leftover bricks. I didn't mind. There was something healing about the chaos, about the way life had found a way to grow in places I thought were barren. One afternoon, while planting some stubborn rose bushes along the fence line, my daughter skipped over, hair full of dirt and eyes full of questions. "Daddy, are you ever going to get married again?" she asked. The question hit me harder than I expected. I sat back on my heels, wiped my hands on my jeans, and thought about it. I could have given her an easy answer. Something like, maybe, or someday. But she deserved more than that. "Sweetheart," I said, "sometimes people come into your life to teach you something, and sometimes they leave to teach you something even more important. Right now, I'm just happy with you and your brother. We're enough." She seemed to accept that, satisfied for now, and ran off to rescue her brother from a battle with an imaginary dragon. As the sun dipped low and painted the sky in gold and lavender, I sat there for a while longer, thinking about her question. Maybe someday, I thought, maybe someday someone would come along who wouldn't be looking for a hero or a fixer. Someone who saw the scars and loved me anyway. But for now, I was busy writing a different kind of love story. One between a father and his kids, between a man and the life he fought to reclaim. A few weeks later, Mrs. Patterson organized a neighborhood barbecue. Against my better judgment, I agreed to go. I told myself it was for the kids. New friends, new memories, new laughter. We arrived to the smell of grilled burgers and the sound of country music floating through the air. I kept to the edges mostly, talking with a few of the guys about work, sports, weather, the safe topics. That's when I met Claire. She wasn't flashy. She wasn't trying too hard. She wasn't anything like Maya. Claire had this way about her. Steady, kind, the kind of woman who listened with her whole heart. We talked about everything and nothing, and before I knew it, the kids were pulling at my sleeve, ready to go home. Claire just smiled and said, "Maybe I'll see you around." It wasn't a promise. It wasn't a plea. Just an open door. And for the first time in a long time, I realized I wasn't afraid to walk through it. Healing doesn't come all at once. It comes in moments like that, small, simple, beautiful moments that whisper, "It's safe now. You can trust again." That night, as I tucked the kids into bed and turned out the lights, I stood for a long moment in the doorway, listening to their soft breathing. I had lost so much, but standing there, I realized I had gained something even greater, a life built on truth, resilience, and love. Real love. Not perfect, but real. And brother, there's no sweeter victory than that. Claire and I kept running into each other after that barbecue in that small-town way where accidental meetings start to feel a lot like fate giving you a gentle nudge. She'd wave when I picked the kids up from school events, stop to chat when we bumped into each other at the grocery store, or send over a plate of cookies because the kids looked like they had a rough soccer game. It wasn't a whirlwind romance. It wasn't fireworks and sweeping declarations. It was slower than that, steadier. It was a hand extended not to pull me out of anything but simply to hold mine when I was ready. I liked that. I needed that. One Saturday, the kids and I ran into Claire at the local park. She was sitting under a big oak tree with a book in her lap, a thermos of coffee beside her. The kids raced over to say hello like she'd always been part of our circle. Without really thinking about it, I found myself sitting beside her on the blanket she had spread out. We talked about everything: favorite movies, worst jobs, dreams we hadn't dared to say out loud. I realized as the sun dipped low and the shadows stretched long across the grass that I hadn't once thought about Maya. Not even in the quiet spaces between words. Claire wasn't a rebound. She wasn't a replacement. She was just Claire. And that was enough. Over time, we found a rhythm. Family game nights that she sometimes joined. Quiet evenings talking on the porch after the kids were asleep. She never pushed. Never demanded. Just offered her presence like a gift I could accept or decline without pressure. One evening, sitting side by side on the porch swing, she looked over at me and said, "You don't have to tell me everything, Ben. Just know that whatever your story is, it doesn't scare me." I swallowed hard against the lump that rose in my throat. Trust, real trust, isn't given all at once. It's built, slow and careful, like the strongest houses. That night, after she left, I stayed on the porch long after the stars came out. I thought about all the broken pieces I had gathered over the past year, how carefully I had fitted them together to make something new. Maybe, just maybe, there was room for someone else in that life after all. Not to fix me. Not to complete me. Just to walk alongside me. And brother, let me tell you, sometimes the slowest burns are the ones that last the longest. Months turned into a year, and the life we built together, me, the kids, and slowly but surely, Claire, became something stronger than anything I had before. It wasn't about forgetting the past or pretending it hadn't left scars. It was about choosing every day to live in the present, to love without fear, to build without looking over my shoulder. Claire never tried to erase my history. She just walked beside me, steady and sure, letting me set the pace. She was there for the first piano recital, clapping louder than anyone. She cheered at every soccer game, wiped scraped knees, and laughed at burnt dinners. Not replacing anyone. Just being herself. The kids adored her, but it wasn't about filling a missing space, it was about making new memories, ones not haunted by what was lost. On a warm evening in late summer, we sat out on the porch again, the stars sprawling above us, the air thick with the smell of fresh-cut grass and distant barbecue smoke. Claire took my hand and rested her head on my shoulder. No words needed. No promises demanded. Just the quiet, certain knowledge that we were exactly where we were meant to be. I thought about the road that led me here, all the pain, the betrayal, the lonely nights wondering if I'd ever feel whole again. And I realized something powerful. I hadn't just survived. I hadn't just rebuilt. I had thrived. I had taken the worst thing that ever happened to me and used it as a foundation to build something better, something real. Not perfect, never perfect. But true. As the kids laughed inside the house, their voices carrying through the screen door, I squeezed Claire's hand gently and whispered, "Thank you for finding us." She smiled against my shoulder and whispered back, "Thank you for letting me." And just like that, the last pieces of the old life slipped away, carried off on a soft summer breeze. I wasn't the man who had been betrayed anymore. I wasn't the man who had been left. I was the man who stayed. The man who fought. The man who built a new life from the rubble. And brother, let me tell you, this life, the one I chose, the one I built with my own 2 hands and an open heart, is worth every scar it took to get here.